and welcome to Brunch with Books. When I was growing up, my father had a unique way of teaching self confidence. No, not motivational seminars, no TED Talks, no big lectures, just random lines like, go, you can do it. Even when I was not able to understand how, what will I do? I don't know. I have no idea, no clue. But that was his simple words. Go, you can do it. Let's deep dive in today's special episode because we are discussing how my father taught me self confidence. I will ask Dr. Geeta Karyappa what she wants to share on these lines.
Thank you, Sritapa. Hi, everyone. The confidence my father taught me was born out of fear. As a child, I was extremely hesitant and timid. I was afraid to go to places by myself or meet new people. My father was a strict disciplinarian. And because I was the elder of the two daughters, he insisted that I learn to handle responsibilities independently. He would send me alone to post offices, banks, shopping centers, and other public places. I would argue with him because I lacked the confidence to speak up or handle situations on my own. For me, stepping out of my shell felt like torture. Yet, because I didn't relent and I didn't want to constantly, argue and have conflict with him, I slowly began to go to these places by myself to run errands and handle responsibilities. Then came a time when I truly had to step up. My father was particular that both my sister and I should know how to use the family gun. Being Kodavas, owning a gun was a part of our family legacy. So he taught us to shoot. The first time I tried, the recoil hit my shoulder so hard that it terrified me. I didn't want to learn shooting, but my father insisted. One night during our holidays, my sister and I were alone in our estate house in Kodagu while my parents had gone to a function. It was late, almost 2 o'clock in the morning, and still they hadn't returned. It was the coffee picking season, and the courtyard outside was filled with coffee beans spread out to dry. The servant quarters were behind, but no one was around that night. I don't know why. Suddenly, a beam of light swept across the courtyard. Then I heard a vehicle stop outside. I sensed something was wrong because it didn't sound like the engine of my father's car. Fear gripped me. At that time, I was studying in my second PUC, and my sister was, even younger. I looked out through the window. The bedroom looked out into the courtyard. I looked out through the window and saw 3 or 4 men getting out of the vehicle carrying torches. It was pitch dark. And then the electricity also went out. They knocked on the front door. I did not open it because I knew it wasn't my dad. Then they began circling around the house, peeping through the windows. My sister and I, we crouched silently behind the cot in the bedroom. Torchlight swept across the room, but we were hidden low behind the bed, so they couldn't spot us. Then the banging began on the back door. They started hitting it violently. Though the wooden doors were strong and sturdy, terror consumed me. Even if they broke that back entrance door, they would still have to force open another door before reaching us. And we had also locked our bedroom door. But even then, all that I could think of was, what if they got in? What will happen to us? Then my eyes fell on the gun standing in the corner of the room. To this day, I do not know what came over me. With that conscious thought, I just walked towards it. The gun was always kept loaded and cocked, ready to fire. And always, we were strictly warned not to touch it casually. Yet in that desperate moment, I lifted it. I went near the window, I pointed it towards the sky and pulled the trigger. The recoil was so violent that it hurled me backwards into the corner of the room, and the deafening shot echoed across the night sky. And then there was complete silence. A few moments later, I heard hurried footsteps running away. The engine of the vehicle roared into life, and within seconds, it vanished into the darkness. I was trembling uncontrollably. My sister clung to me, and both of us were there, shivering, holding each other, waiting for father to return. That night, for the first time in my life, I understood why my father had pushed me so hard. I was grateful that he had forced both of us to learn how to use a gun. In that terrifying moment, a self-confidence I never knew I possessed rose from within me. It unfurled itself from its timidity and came forward to protect me. And from that day onward, slowly I began building confidence in myself step by step, step by step. And the greatest legacy my father passed on to me was courage. And perhaps This is what love sometimes looks like, not sheltering us from fear, but preparing us to survive it. Thank you. Over to you, Dr. Siddharth, to share your insights.
Wow, that's such a wonderful story, Dr. Geeta. And I can imagine the kind of terror you would be. But at the same time, the courage which got into you because of your father's learnings. Uh, Hats off to you and your father, definitely, teaching you so many lessons through his way of telling something, not just showing that future, but giving you that strength in, early period. I feel the same for my father. He has taught me fearlessness. And it's an amazing thing that, when we actually learn from our parents, many a times we feel like we are forced upon some lessons, like you were sharing, Dr. Geeta. We don't want to do that, but then uh, our parents actually push us. And my father was a very disciplined guy. He had taken life as that uh, it's something which will teach us and will enhance and evolve us. So whenever we used to see him, uh, his way of looking at life was completely different from his brothers, from his family, and that's something which interested me a lot. One of the incident is that I had to learn cycle. Now, my father told that if you are if you want to go around and see the world, you need to learn cycling because cycling teaches us balance and you need to know how to balance life. So I was very scared. He had a big it was a hero cycle and it was a big cycle, which I couldn't even get up on because I was small. It was around 14 or I was 14 or 15 years old and I wanted to learn, but I was not even able to get up on the cycle. It was a heavy cycle. He told me that I have to learn it. And then it was very interesting thing that he told me that I will support you get on the cycle and I will push it through and you have to just paddle and then you will get balance. That he made it look so simple that I fell for it and I said, okay, let's do it. And yes, he got me on the cycle. I could just had my feet around the paddle. I had no knowledge of how I could even get down from that cycle. But because he showed the courage, and the confidence that I can do it, I just went for it. And I had just paddled like not even one or two, I think half of a paddle, and I was ready to fall. I was balancing it somehow, and then we had actually there was a slope, and I balanced somehow, and after like uh, quarter mile, not even quarter mile, less than that, I fell, and I fell hard. I even have those, the marks of falling even till now, and it blood was all over me. I was crying, and I was having no trust in my father. What are you doing? I I just ran towards my home. I told my mom that what he did, and mother gave me that band-aid and other things. And she also had a little fight with my father, and my father just smiled at me. Years later, yes, I have learned cycling, and now I realize that that day the lesson he was giving me was not about success. It was about failure. It was a failure which made me strong, and I felt like I need to do this because uh, he had challenged me at that time. And that failure made me stronger the next time, the next time, and the next time. And now in my life, I really don't have fear for failures anymore. That is the lesson of fearlessness which I got from him, and many more lessons. But I wanted to share this for love for my father, and being a Father's Day month. Always will love you. Thank you so much. Over to Sujata to share her story. Thank you.
Thank you for these inspiring stories, Dr. Geeta's.
Means it was a moment full of suspense and yours also, how you learned. And, this confidence that we get from our father, actually, it stands us in very good stead later on at some point in our life. And that's what I want to share today, just now. My father, too, he gifted me confidence. And again, not through any big speeches or not praising me, but simply by trusting that I would do the right thing when the situation arose. I remember I was very young, still in my primary school. Me and my sister, we used to travel alone to school by public transport in a big metro city like Calcutta. And people were amazed. They would ask they would ask us and my parents that how can you allow such small children to travel alone? Maybe like she was in class 2 and I was in class 4. That's small, still in the primary. But my father, he believed something very simple. Children become capable when we trust them. I still remember an incident from my school days. Our school had organized a road safety program in a huge stadium far from our home. My father dropped me there and said, I'll come and pick you up in the evening. The program got over. I came out and suddenly realized there were so many gates to the stadium. I didn't remember which gate to go to. And I didn't even remember which gate I'd entered from. I kept walking around the stadium in circles. Slowly the crowd disappeared. The stadium became empty. It became dark. I could not see my father anywhere. Today, when I think about it, it sounds frightening for a young child. But strangely, I was not panicking. Somewhere inside me was a quiet confidence. I knew my father must have come, and if I could not find him, I would somehow find my way home. I had no money with me. Then I noticed a couple nearby who looked kind and safe. I gathered courage and went up to them and explained my situation. They gave me the bus fare, showed me the correct bus stop, and finally I reached home safe. When I reached home, my parents told me they'd both come looking for me, but the stadium was huge, crowded, and there were no mobile phones in those days. We had somehow crossed each other, missed each other. And I still remember what my mother said to this day. She said, your father was sure, absolutely sure that you would reach home safely. That sentence stayed with me forever. My father trusted my ability to handle unknown situations long before I trusted myself. And that trust became my confidence. Years later, after marriage, that same confidence stayed with me. Once during a cruise to Alaska, I wanted to visit a glacier where my husband had already gone ahead. I was alone in a foreign place with only a few dollars in my pocket. But I got down from the ship, found the bus, stopped, traveled alone, and reached there safely. My husband was amazed. But to me, it felt natural because somewhere deep inside, I'd always believed I would manage. Another time I got lost in Russia. People around me did not understand English. But instead of getting frightened, I kept trying, and finally, by showing a picture of a basilica that I had in my bag, I walked my way home, back to the place where the bus had left us. And over the years, I realized something important. Confidence is not loud, it is not arrogance, it is a quiet belief somehow you will figure it out. The confidence shaped my life. It gave me the courage to stay curious, to keep learning, to keep growing. Even in my 70s, I gave my first TED Talks. I was terrified of technology, but I learned it. I recorded my audiobook in my own voice. I did parasailing also in my 70s. And when people ask me, where did this confidence come from? I know the answer. It began many years ago with a father who quietly trusted his daughter to find her way. So I still remember all this and it makes me emotional. Now over to you, Jasveer, to share what you feel about your father and the confidence he gave you. Over to you.
Such we have such lovely stories from all the authors today. There's such touching stories, and yes, confidence and courage is something that most fathers share with their children, because mothers are more the emotional, compassionate ones who give us the love and unconditional love and care. And it's actually the fathers who make us strong enough to face the world, because finally, as adults, we have to face the world. And this reminds me that my father, he was very helpful and compassionate, and he always stood by people in whatever was right. It didn't matter whether he was alone or there was anyone else supporting him or not. He fought for what was right, and this goes back, and he always taught me by his example, by action. He never gave me any sermons, or he never preached anything, but as I watched him is where I learned. So there was a time when my father and me used to go for walks, and we stayed close to Marine Drive, which is a sea face. And what happened is, one evening as we were going for a walk, there was this poor couple. The husband was a drunkard, and he was very aggressively hitting his wife, and possibly he wanted money from her, and she used to beg on that signal there and get money, and he was grabbing money from her. And while she was crying and she was screaming, there was, and as is usually the case, unfortunately, many people were standing and watching, and they did not want to take action because they felt that it can become a criminal case, and if something happens, they'll have to face the police and get into all that problems. And when we went closer and my father saw that, he just pushed through the crowd, pulled the man. It wasn't like such a big task because the guy was drunk. Anyways, he didn't have that much of strength, but all it needed was that moment of understanding and moment of empathy towards that woman who was struggling, and she had nothing she could do in retaliation. He pulled him and threw him across on the floor, and the man got scared because my father, he was a sardar. So usually that the aura that the Sikh community carry is of courage and strength. And when he saw him, he started begging for forgiveness, because my father was going to give him one slap, and before he could slap him, the man started weeping and crying and saying, "I'm sorry." And immediately he was quite a coward. And my father picked him up, and he went to there was a police station close by, and he took him there, and he kind of handed him over to the police. And that man's wife was also coming along, so that she could give witness that he was actually torturing her. And then my dad handed over around 1,000 rupees, which was quite a bit of money in those days. I'm talking of 30 years back. He gave her the money, and he said that just take care of your children. She had 2 small children with her. And without expecting any appreciation or anything, we just went back home. And my dad didn't give me any lectures or any sermons about going and helping people or whatever. His actions spoke for himself. And all this built a lot of courage in me, because I was more of an introvert and didn't interact with people, didn't socialize so much. So what happened is this, a couple of years later, when I was, this was when I was in around the 3rd standard, and I was in the sixth standard, which was around when I was 12, 13 years old. We used to play Holi, which is a festival of colors in India. And all my friends, we used to go crazy playing with the Holi colors and all. And we had been instructed by the building to stand outside and play on the footpath, because the building premises should not get dirty. And what happened is, we were a group of girls, and there was this group of boys who came along, and they were strangers. They were young boys, and they insisted on applying color on us. Now, fortunately or unfortunately, my friends managed to escape, and they got inside the building. The building gates were closed. So they rushed in, and the gates got closed, and I was left alone. And one of the boys was approaching me, and he obviously did not have any good intention. It was quite a scary scene, because I was all alone there with no adult around. I was still a child, though a teenager. And the man was approaching me to apply color on my face, and I wasn't sure what would happen. But before he could do that, as he approached me, I just pushed him, and I screamed, and I ran towards my building, and I screamed at the watchman to open the door so that I could get in. And that moment, all my friends were like, realized that they actually left me alone there to manage myself. There were a few boys also, but no one really came to my rescue. And that day, I learned my lesson that you have to stand up for yourself, irrespective of whatever. You can't expect anything from anyone. And that courage came from the time when I saw my father being courageous, irrespective of being asked to do something. So, and this has gone a long way, because I've taught the same values to my daughter. There have been times when she has been bullied in school, and then she learned that lesson, that no matter what, she has to stand up for herself. At the same time, she has gone ahead and stood up for her friends also, which is amazing. So that's what my dad taught me, compassion, empathy, and to stand up for yourself, or to stand up for what is right and what is just. So I am really fortunate that my father taught me by example, and I've learned these beautiful lessons of life. So now I hand it over to Shritapa to share her story.
Thank you, Jasmeet, and such an inspiring stories coming from each and every one of us, and definitely all the people who are listening us today is also realizing how their parents or their dad have taught them confidence in life. So I will like to add here my father's story. A man who is very disciplined, almost he follows his day with a routine which has not changed for years, several years, and he follows that routine religiously. Whether it is any season, doesn't matter. Whether it is any festival, doesn't matter. And yes, one day I was in class 7. My school planned a trip to Murshidabad. But at home, everyone said, don't send these girls. It's not safe. They are too young. They will not be able to manage everything on their own. It was me and my twin sister studying in the same class. But my father had said something very different. Whatever everyone was saying, he was not following that same thing. He said that let them go. They need to learn life in small steps. I didn't understand anything out of it. But then he looked at me and my twin sister and said, take care of each other, manage your money, and he gave some money in our hand, stay with your teacher, and come back home with lots of good memories. No fear in his eyes, no restrictions, just trust that we will be able to do it. And at that age, I didn't know that whether I will be able to do everything on my own, all the expenses, everything. I had no clue how to travel on my own, but I didn't realize what he truly meant. But that one trip, that was something that shifted something in me. Years later, when I stepped out first time for my first job and first time away from home, that memory came back. I realized I have done it before and I can do it now. Every time, whenever life gives me some new things, uncertainties, I still remind myself quietly that I can manage this. I can do it. I have that ability and my parents trust me. So that gives me an inner strength, which still carries me to do so many things on my own. So in a country unknown with nobody known, I still could manage it. See how that small steps in life is still working in your life. And with this, I hope everyone has learned something from us and is cherishing those golden memories of your dad with you and still remembering those amazing confidence which comes from your dad. In this Father's Day, let's pay a tribute to them and let's remember their importance in our life. Happy Father's Day. Thank you. Tata. Bye bye. Take care.